Okay. I'm sorry, I just heard there's no audio to some of the listeners. I apologize. So I'll pause for a moment.
I just received word it's on.
Okay. So so mandatory to wear the mask on the bus at all times, and arriving at school, the mask must be time to the students. If the mask needs to be worn for students who have a medical condition that doesn't allow them to wear the mask, we will provide an alternative to the mask. But it's not a choice on whether you want to wear the mask or not. The mask, it's not as though students can elect not to wear the mask, because it's not just their safety, it's the safety of everyone, teachers, staff, and other students. And if students are not able to wear the mask, we can provide alternatives such as a shield or something else that the student may wear. But if that's not the case and the student just selects not to wear the mask, the first time it may be a warning, the next time it may be a greater consequence. And if it becomes an issue, it would be that the student could not attend school and will have to be educated remotely. Because again, we're looking at the safety and security of all, and we're looking at putting the procedures in place that will best ensure that safety. I know that may sound harsh, but what we're talking about here is serious, and it needs to be consistent across the board. So I think it's important that those messages are up front, and I'm going to turn it over to Eileen to discuss a little bit more in depth about the high school plan and how the team really has looked at how to create the best learning environment while also keeping safety at the forefront.
Thank you, Brian. I just want to, shout out my team as well as the rest of the administrative team in the district. It has been a collective effort. So what I have put together here is I'm sorry, I'm just pulling it up now. I have put together a short PowerPoint that I can just share some of the highlights of things that are going on with our in terms of our safety plan that we're putting forward for staff as well as students. This is not 100% of our information. What we're trying to do is touch on some of the biggest highlights. So I am going to go through a number of bullet points, and then there will be an opportunity for questions. So first thing I'm going to do is grab a piece of paper and something to write with and write this information down. If you have questions during the presentation, you may call 860-829-6785. That is Mr. Benigni's direct line. Or you can email him at bbenigni@berlinschools.org. So he will be receiving your questions during the information that I will be going through. So obviously we just want to start with our objective, and that we are looking to provide a safe and productive teaching and learning environment for all students and staff at Berlin High School. These are the considerations which you should have seen in the district plan. These are obviously, while it's not everything, these are really some of the major drivers that we are looking at in terms of making adjustments to our instruction as well as some of our daily operations within the building. So Mr. Benigni already addressed the face coverings. Social distancing, we will work to provide social distancing where feasible and possible. Otherwise, the mask will obviously be in place. Cohorting, I just want to make a mention at the high school level is obviously very difficult unless you're completely dismantling the educational offerings for the students. So what we're looking to do is minimize the number of transitions, minimize the amount of mixing that students might be doing for an extended period of time. So we're looking at other ways that, because we don't necessarily have that cohorting option that may be available, say, at the elementary level. And as far as transportation, you saw the information that was available for the in the district plan. So in terms of instructional highlights, just to let you know, we are going to be making an adjustment to our schedule. It will not have an impact on what your child is actually signed up to take, but it will, it basically what I would say we have is a 6x4 model right now. We typically run 6 periods a day for an hour for each class over the course of 4 days. You know, they rotate over 4 days. We're basically just turning and flipping that. We're going to run a block schedule in which classes will run for 90 minutes. So 4 classes will run each day, and we will have a 6-day rotation. This has allowed us to maintain all of the classes in place for students without any loss of instructional time or opportunity. It also provides us an opportunity to add a 4th lunch wave. There will be fewer transitions per day. And we will also be able to increase passing time slightly in between classes and definitely during the lunch waves. It also minimizes the number of contact points that an individual teacher as well as student will have each given day. We will minimize the sharing of materials and equipment where it is feasible, providing appropriate cleaning supplies when it is not possible. We will have a consistent use of Schoology to allow for a seamless transition to remote learning or distance learning should that be required. That was something that we also worked on this spring to try to systematize that. We have some expectations in place that we will be working with faculty on. We will continue with our one-to-one technology. We're very fortunate with that. And individual departments will have specific protocols. We obviously have very specialized departments such as family consumer science, science, music instruction, PE, technology education, and so forth. There will be specific district department protocols based on the type of instruction per department. Extracurriculars will continue to run with adjustments as needed. And should we be going, and I'm sorry, my PowerPoint says 100% remote plan. It really should say 100% distance learning plan. Should we have to go to that, it will provide more synchronous instruction and increased accountability for students and teachers. That was based off much of the feedback that was provided through the survey from students as well as parents. In terms of some of the very specific building highlights, we are looking to reduce the number of students and staff in each setting where possible. We will remove extra furniture and desks to allow for increased social distancing within the classroom. We'll have one-way traffic patterns where it's feasible. We'll provide the appropriate types of cleaning supplies, including hand sanitizer, disinfectant, and other types of products as needed in each classroom setting. We'll use additional spaces as needed in order to provide social distancing where we may not be able to get class sizes down. There will be specific protocols outlined for unique settings such as the Library Media Center, Upbeat Health Office. We are currently in conversation and the planning for those specific protocols. All of those areas have provided some draft plans. And we will have to close some spaces as needed where we really feel like it's just not a safe environment, including our locker rooms and our VR labs for now. In terms of food service highlights, meals will be prepared so that they are grab and go meals, whether it's breakfast or lunch. The students will eat breakfast in their Block 1 classroom before 7:25. We will use additional spaces for lunch, including the cafeteria, the B gym, and senior court. We will be putting additional seating outside. With the addition of the 4th lunch wave, we will be able to minimize the number of students that are in each lunch area during each wave. We will have assigned lunch spaces. And what I mean by that is probably by grade level. And we will look at the number of students in each wave and determine the best locations. Senior court will still be reserved for seniors. We will limit the number of students per table. We are going to put plexiglass shields on the table because obviously students, when they're eating and drinking, will have their masks off. And we have added time between lunch waves in order to wipe everything down and also to limit the amount of interaction in the hallway and passing in the hallway between lunch waves. In terms of some of our daily operation adjustments that we will be making, Students may not enter the building prior to 7:05. We are working with the bus company to ensure that. Will also be sending out a notice to any parent that is dropping off students that we would request you do not do it before 7:05. Students will report directly to their Block 1 classroom upon entering. Our typical protocol is that students are permitted to walk and gather in the hallways before school, but in order to limit interaction, we are not going to be able to permit that. We also in the past have had everybody enter in one entrance, and we will provide specific direction in terms of splitting that up. So bus riders will enter in the front, drop off, and drivers will enter in the side by the Give Me Gym. And you will get all of that information well before school starts. We will limit the number of students in the restrooms at a time. We will have students scanning in and out of spaces. We currently do that in a handful of spaces, and we are looking to expand that. And the purpose for doing that is contact tracing purposes. So we are going to ask students to wear IDs and lanyards that will have a barcode on them. The IDs will have a barcode on them so that they can easily scan in and out. We will have a staggered end of the day dismissal. There will be hand sanitizer, frequent hand sanitizing, desk, restroom, and water fountain cleaning, limited large group gatherings. So very limited use of the auditorium for large group gatherings, only as needed and if we can socially distant. The locker rooms will be closed, as I stated before. This is also a small change that students in all grades 9 through 12 with parental permission will be allowed to arrive late or leave early if they have a study hall in their schedule. So that is a bit of a change, and that is a 1-year change only. Normally that is something that is permitted just for seniors, but by opening that up, we are able to limit the number of students coming in at each time, in and out, like arriving and leaving. So it spreads that out, and it also limits the number of students in the building in the morning and the afternoon, should they choose that option. There will be limited schedule changes permitted in order to keep class sizes small. We are working to balance and spread students out as much as possible without disrupting their current educational programming. And therefore, we will not be able to have the type of movement that maybe we've had in the past in terms of class changes. But student schedules at this point are intact and will be honored in terms of what they signed up for back in the spring. In terms of wellness, we recognize that this comes with certainly a physical and emotional wellness connected to all of this. There will be training and support provided for staff and students in August. Some of it will be remote, some of it will be in person. There will, in the form of professional learning, safety protocols, transition programming, re-entering programming for students that were already in our building. So for students going into 10th through 12th grade, we'll need to work with them to adjust to some of our new protocols, emotional support, as well as academic support. We will, and when I mentioned transition programming, we are working on some transition programming specifically for our incoming 9th graders, as well as students that will be new to Berlin High School in 10th through 12th grade. We will use our advisory curriculum to focus on safety and well-being for increased social emotional health, and we will follow all the district protocols for health screening, stay-home policies, containment, and shutdown, and those were provided in the district plan that was sent to you. As far as athletics, as I did mention, extracurriculars will move forward with appropriate adjustments, and athletics I know is a big part of our programming at Berlin High School. We will follow all of the guidelines set forth by the CIAC. We have been fortunate enough to get some of our summer programs up and running, and they have been doing very well. There is a one-time exception for physicals. They are extending that to that your physical is good for 15 months for the fall season, because we understand it's been very difficult for students to get in to get their physicals updated. We are in constant communication with the State Department of Ed, the CIAC, obviously the Board of Education, and the CCC, our conference, in terms of best practices for athletics. Coaches, as well as our PE and wellness teachers, will develop protocols for shared equipment, use of locker rooms, and cohorting as much as possible in those individual settings. So I do recognize that that is a lot of information. So again, you can email your questions and feedback to Berlin High School Administrator at any time after this forum. But what I'm going to do right now is turn it back to Mr. Benigni, as he is likely receiving questions via email or phone. Oh no.
So at this point, I have two questions that came in via email, and I'll hopefully can answer those for you. The first question is, if a student chooses to do remote learning initially, are they able to come back to school at a later date? The answer is yes. That students are able to start remotely and then go back to live and come to school, or vice versa. Should a student come to school and then decide to learn remotely? What we can't have though is we won't have like a student picking to come to school Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in school, and then remote learning Monday and Friday. But what the remote learning does, it allows for a student to come into the classroom. The other students would see that student on a video monitor, as that student would see the teacher and what's going on in the class. That student could raise their hand, ask a question. So they would be an active learner within the instruction that's going on in the class. And so students, what a little different than last year with the distance learning, our protocols and things weren't as tight as we would expect them to be this year. So the student would have to come into class, be to class on time, have their video monitor on at home, and be attentive as if they were in class. So I hope that answers that question. Second question was, how would senior court work for the seniors, and how would going to the library media center for study hall work? And Eileen, I'm going to let you answer that.
So our goal right now is to continue to have senior court open. We would limit the number of students that would be permitted to sit at each table. But in the case of the seniors, it does provide potentially an opportunity for a mask break, because based on the number of students that are out there, they would be able to be 6 feet apart, provided that it is a smaller number of students. We would obviously work with our security staff as well as administration to supervise that area. As far as the library media center is concerned, I have met with Mrs. Rice as well as Ms. Turpin, who oversees the library media centers for the district, and we have established some protocols. So we're not closing the media center, but what we are going to do is probably limit the number of students. We will need to reduce the number of students that can come from study halls. They're looking, instead of handing out paper passes in the morning, what they'll be doing is moving to an electronic system where a student can potentially sign up. For the media center, our media center is it has already been closed during the lunch wave, so we will continue that practice. And while we feel this is in everybody's best interest, we will not be able to have the media center open before or after school, because that will increase the amount of cross mixing of students, which we are trying to mitigate at this point in time. So we are going to start that way. That's not to say that over time might some of those strategies differ, but we will still be able to offer the use of the media center during the school day.
Thanks, Eileen. So a few other questions just came in. I'll try to keep up with them here. So one question was, will the musical still take place? At this time, for music class and music instruction, students have to be 12 feet socially distanced. So the odds of a musical happening to the degree that it's happened in the past, and to have people in an auditorium like that, I would say, unless we move to phase 3 or phase 4, we would not be able to do a musical anywhere near to the extent that we did before. To say that we won't have music class or some instruction, that will definitely take place. But to say a full-blown musical initially, we would not put that in place, just because we could never meet the social distancing requirements for the audience or for the students involved. Date at which you have to decide on when the learning will take place. We hope to have a survey out to parents on Thursday morning, and we'll ask you, since you've looked at the plan, to make some determination. That does not mean that you cannot change your mind at any point, as I said earlier, and choose either remote or live instruction. But we'd like to see where you're thinking at this time. So that'll come out on Thursday.
So may I just jump in with one thing? One of the things we will do is work with Mr. Benigni if there's district protocol, but we will also set something up with regard to the high school specifically so that we know, we want to make sure that we're able to appropriately communicate with teachers in terms of who's going to be physically present and who will be remote, so they can plan appropriately for that as well.
So next question is, if BHS goes to distance learning, now remote learning means that some of the students are being educated outside of school, or distance learning means that all students are being educated outside of school. Do you see teachers still teaching at BHS or in their homes? We're not going to require, if we go to distance learning, that means that there's a safety concern for staff and students. We're not going to require that teachers would come into the building and teach from their classrooms. But given the camera system that we have, should they opt to do that, they would be socially distanced in their classrooms by themselves. They could do that, or they could teach from home. So I could see it being a combination of both. I also want to say that even when there's live teaching going on, there may be times when a teacher is not in the building. If someone in their household had a health condition where they could not be in the building for a set period of time, students that are in the building may be in the classroom being taught by the teacher while the teacher's at home, rather than having a sub in front of them. The camera system would allow us to do that. That would allow the teacher to teach from home, teach students that are remote from home, as well as teaching the students in the school. So it could be on some given days, if teachers aren't in the building, that the students who are in the school are having some live instruction with the teacher right there in front of them at Berlin High School. And they may have a period where the teacher is coming into the classroom via Zoom and receiving the instruction virtually, because the teacher is not sick, but the teacher is caring for someone in their household who may be sick. So it could be a combination of both.
So one of the other things that we've been working on is that should we have to move to distance learning, we really want a very seamless transition. So we are working with teachers with regard to the setup of things in Schoology, as well as, with the camera system and things like that, so that, if for some reason it was a quick shift, we would be able to manage that without any interruption in terms of instruction.
All right, let me just get back to the question, Joe. I'm sorry. So first, the question is, how do you notify the school if your child must begin in remote learning? So what would happen there is we will send out something officially. The survey will give us a preliminary number. We'll ask for your name and so on, but it's not carved in stone. You definitely can shift and change. It'll just give us some idea of planning. So that can happen at any time. We'll just get the next email here. Right. Social distancing on the buses. In the survey that we're sending out, and the same thing in the plan, that if parents can provide transportation, we're asking parents to do that to decrease the numbers on the buses. We cannot, and it's across the state, we cannot provide enough buses to offer multiple runs to distance students at the six feet as what's required for social distancing. And that's why the mandatory use of the mask. What we are going to do on the buses, though, most of our buses make 2 runs. So if they make a high school run, they make an elementary run. So we hope to have assigned seats on the bus. We also hope to have the students on the bus in the manner that they get on or exit the bus. So essentially, the student that gets on the bus that sits in the front seat, if there's 2 high school students sitting in the front seat and 3 elementary, there'll only be a cohort of 5 students ever sitting in that seat on that specific bus. The seats will be wiped down between the runs, but it is important that, and we'll talk to students about sitting face forward, not turning around on the bus, and obviously to wear the mask and be as safe as possible. We'll get to the next question. I apologize here. Is it true that if there's a positive case at school, the school just shuts down for a period of time? If not, what is notification related to protocol for positive cases? So I know if you look at the plan, it says the superintendent will make that call. I'm not a medical professional, but my first call will be to the Central Connecticut Health District, to the director, Charles Brown. We talk weekly. Myself and other administrators have spoken with him. So he will then ask us to explain the situation, whether it's a teacher, a student, how much cohorting is taking place in the school, did the student ride the bus, and so on. They'll help us map out what the protocol should be. And from there, we'll make a determination whether it should be a 72-hour shutdown. Do we wait until the student gets tested and find out if they're positive or the staff member is positive? Should it be a shutdown of the high school and the middle school because the student is positive? There's a sibling at the other school. But those decisions will not be made solely by me. They'll be made in consultation with the health district. And then you'll see in the plan that it says that we will contact the health district upon notification. So the protocols may be different based on the building and how much cohorting took place and where and how that student was involved or teacher was involved in the school. Will students be able to seek help from teachers before a first scheduled class of the day? What about after school help? The answer
So-
to that, Eileen, go ahead, take it.
So the protocol for that is going to be that the student and the teacher have to have a pre-arrangement. So the idea of just sort of open sessions in the morning, we have to modify that a bit so that students would have a pass. Yes, they could come beginning at 6:45, but they need to have a pass. They would need to sign in and they would need to report directly to that teacher's room. And then when they were finished, they would have to report directly to their Block 1 classroom. As far as extra help, teachers would be available after school, for extra help. We also have some teachers that are discussing being able to provide extra help via Zoom so that they are not in the school building longer than they need to be. So yes, extra help will still be available, and the teacher will definitely communicate when they would be available and in what format.
Related question, the math tutoring center, Eileen, I don't know if you've thought about that yet, whether the math tutoring center will be open.
We will work with the math department to discuss appropriate protocols. If we can provide a safe setting for that, we will continue to do that. If we cannot, we may have to take a look at that.
Okay, next question. So I'm correct to assume for remote or distance learning, students will be required to participate live with their camera on? Yes, absolutely correct. That students' attendance will be taken. The camera must be on. They shouldn't have their hood over their head. We've had a great discussion about the pros and the cons of our distance learning. And believe me, I'm very pleased with what we've done and, on the fly, and that the community support has been outstanding for the teachers and so on. But we also know where our shortcomings were. And if we do need to go to distance learning again, the protocols and the expectations will be much different. I assure you. That's the last question I have. If there's any more questions, please feel free to either call or email me. And I would like to share a few questions that I received earlier today. One question was that, opening up of the schools. Why are you opening the schools if we haven't reached phase 3 and, we're still saying no more than 50 and churches aren't open and we're going to get more individuals together than the 50. We're a public school and we're being requested to put by the state. I mean, you saw the document, to put together a plan for reopening. My understanding, the governor made an announcement that this was about a week ago, within 30 days, he'll make another announcement to say whether he will open the schools, as he's expressed already, or not. He's asking for 3 plans. Our plans that we're submitting here, as you noted, one of them is a live plan, which we talked about, the remote learning also. The other is a hybrid model, which we would go to school an A, B. That would change the busing, as someone spoke of. So there would be an A group that goes to school Monday and Tuesday, and a B group that goes to school Thursday and Friday. And the other time is virtual, with Wednesday being like an office hours, an extra help day, and so on. That's in the plan. And then the last being distance learning. And I spoke a little bit about the expectations for distance learning would be much different than what they were prior, including the video and the live teaching that would be expected, and so on. And you know, Eileen's going to roll out a plan that's just for the high school, a little more specific than our district plan, and even the times that classes are scheduled and so on for the high school would be different if we were full distance. So, but we need to be prepared for all three. The difficult part of that is that the monies that for the camera system, the monies for additional staffing. We're adding 5 part-time custodians and 1 full-time custodian to ensure the cleanliness of the building. All flat surfaces will be wiped down twice a day. Lavatories will be cleaned multiple times a day. We've had to hire some additional staff. So there's implications or budgetary implications to ensure the safety and the cleanliness of the building. But we still need to be prepared for this live teaching, as that's the direction that we're being requested to be prepared for at this time. So without any change, I would imagine that we will be live, and that's what we're preparing for. But we still have to have the other 2 plans ready to go should we need them. But I do believe that at the secondary level, at the high school in particular, the camera system will provide the greatest opportunity for students and staff to be as close to live teaching without all the implications because of COVID in place. So I'm very optimistic. We demoed the system last week with all the administrators in multiple locations, and we're very impressed. So it's encouraging from that sense that we know students will be more connected to their peers, as well as to the instruction that needs to take place. Eileen, I don't know if you want to add anything. Aaron, anyone, Katie or Barbara? There's no more questions that I see at this time. I'll check again.
No, I think I just want to add that, especially our high school administrative team is available for anybody that has individual questions or concerns. We want to be there not only to support your child, but to support you as well. We understand that this, for some of you, you have a lot of concerns. Everybody's situation is unique. And, but our ultimate goal is to provide a safe environment for students as well as staff and continue instruction, the best possible instruction and education for our students, whether they are live, remote, or distance. Ultimately, that is our goal, but we also recognize the social, emotional health and well-being, which is something that we are working on planning for with our faculty and staff as students, as we look to re-enter our students into the building, whether it is remotely or in person. So I just want to let you know, I know we didn't spend a lot of time talking about that, but that is certainly something that, once we kind of move through some of the building operational things, it is providing us now time to look at some of the other supports that we understand need to be in place in order to best support our students.
A few more questions came in here. So will there be a pep rally or scheduled at a later date? The only way there could be a pep rally is if we can ensure social distancing. And as Eileen said earlier, we're going to look to, limit the large group gatherings. So, having a pep rally in a safe environment, I don't know how possible it is. It might be something we could do. We'd really have to talk about it. We haven't had that discussion. What about homecoming and proms? At this time, as much as we wanted to have our prom for the graduating class of 2020, the health department, which is, Central Connecticut Health District, Charles Brown said that's a no-go because of the social distancing. So to answer those questions, I couldn't tell you. It depends, I think, on where we are, locally within the state of Connecticut and what phase we're in. We need that lifted right now. It's 125 socially distanced outside. So right now the answer would be no, but that could change. Will students be allowed to bring their own Chromebooks versus using school issue ones? Absolutely. If students wish to use their own devices, they're fine to do that. If not, we will provide them with a Chromebook as we have had in the past. Would all schools follow the same plan, or could one be live and another one be hybrid, et cetera? So what we put in place is, and this was a big discussion with administration, the 6 through 12 will have the camera system, and K through 5 will not. K through 5, if you're receiving remote learning, you'll have a teacher assigned to the remote learning. So if you're going to school, you'll have a different teacher. So it won't be the same. So at the secondary level, you're locked into your schedule, whether you're remote or you're live. It's the same schedule, the same time. At the elementary level, that's not the case. And the rationale behind that simply is the discussion with administration is that having students sit in front of a screen for a length of period of time of 30 to 50 minutes for a class at the elementary level could be difficult at the primary grades. So we opted not to have the camera. We will have a few cameras in the building should they choose to use it, but it's not something that's not going to be the standard of practice. It will be that standard for the middle school and high school though. I don't know if anyone has any other questions at this time. That's the last one I received, I believe. I think, the biggest thing I want to stress to you is the wearing of the mask, and that the requirement that the staff will be vigilant regarding students wearing the mask in the building, because it's a risk of their safety and everyone else's safety. If a student wishes to wear their own mask, as long as it meets the criteria, we're totally comfortable with that. It's not to be a bandana that's worn. It's to fit tight across the chin and above the nose. It's also, not to have the one-way valves where the breath can still come out through the valve. So there are some criteria for that. And the mask breaks, we've talked a little bit about, there being a place within the classroom to take a mask break anytime a student needs it. That's 6 feet, that 6 feet distance is there. So it's not as though, can I take a mask break? The student would just get up, take the mask break, and then come back. We want to make it in a manner where students are safe. Obviously, we don't want anyone be in harm's way because they couldn't take a mask break. But those are things we have to look further on. Anything else, anyone on the group here that I'm forgetting to add? Katie, Barbara, Tracy, Aaron, anything else that we're missing here? I don't have any more emails or phone calls, so.
I think I would just want to emphasize that this is just the start of communication with regard to the protocols that we will be putting in place. That our plan is to certainly come August 1 have some ongoing and consistent communication, as there will be changes in just some of our daily operation. But again, our goal is to preserve our educational programs and instruction to its greatest degree as we can.
One of the questions I got received here is what kind of PPE can we expect teachers and others to be wearing other than masks? So we're offering teachers also a shield should they want a face shield. We're also offering them a plexiglass partition that would go on the front of their desk. So if a student came over and they had their mask down, that they'd have some protection there. And we've asked teachers if there's something they're not comfortable with, to please ask us. So that was one other question. Dave, would you speak a little bit about sports just to give an update of where sports are, please?
Sure, absolutely. Currently, we are in phase 2 of the CIC reopening or reconditioning status. Basically, what's going on is we have 2 teams at the high school that are participating in this right now, and they're allowed to meet 3 times a week for an hour at each clip, and they're not able to use balls, tackling dummies, etc. They're basically there to condition and get back into the swing of things. You got to keep in mind that most of these kids really have not been active on a competitive basis since March. So to get back into the swing of things and recondition is going to take some time. Hence the 3 times a week, 3 hours a day. I've been in constant contact with the CIAC, athletic directors across the state, in our conference as well. And there's constant conversations about how we're going to start the fall season. As of now, I mean, the plan is a go. The plan is that the fall season will occur. That's everything that I've been told up until this point. I think a lot is going to transpire as youth programs have been in full swing for the past month. I know AAU soccer teams, basketball teams have been participating. So I think this next month is going to be a real testament to see if we're going to be a go or not. I can assure you that I've been on constant conversations on a weekly basis, and will continue to have those conversations and bring that information forth to our administrative team here, and also be able to share some updates with you as we proceed to get closer to the fall season. But as of now, things are going very well. The coaches have been doing a great job. The student athletes out in the field, when I've gone back there and back to high school and I've seen them, they've been social distancing. They've been abiding by the rules and guidelines set forth. So as of now, I know it's a lot on the coaches, it's a lot on the student athletes, and it could be a strain in some regards, but they are doing a really nice job considering the guidelines, and hopefully that'll continue and we could start to expand, not just lifting and running and doing those sorts of things, but actually using some skill work and some balls and things of that nature. But as I get more information, I'll share with our administrative team, and you'll get the information to the public as well.
So one thing I would just also want to point out is that, as Dave was mentioning, this certainly is going to look like a phase-in approach. And I know that athletics isn't just about the athletes themselves, it's also about the spectators. So certainly we are looking for, CIAC will provide us with some specific guidance. We may start with competition without spectators, and then, spectators may be phased in. And as we receive that guidance, then we will develop appropriate protocols for spectators that will be permitted to be present.
I have another question here. Because the classes are based on earned credit hours, how will that adjust for students who need to be absent from school because of their suspected COVID-19 tests or lives with family members with suspected positive for COVID-19? Currently, the 14-day quarantine is still mandated by the state of Connecticut. So do you want to address that, Eileen, about credit if a student has to be out for 14 days? My initial thought is if they're out and they're not the ones, the student is not the one that's sick, they can go into the class remotely.
Yes, so anytime the student is, even if you are attending remotely, you are considered present. And then obviously if a student falls ill and they are not able to attend the class remotely, then we would certainly work with that individual situation with regard to our attendance policy. And we understand that there may need to be some slight flexibility based on each individual situation as things occur.
As far as an excuse, the next question is about an excuse from a medical provider if they're ill. Now, a note from the parent would do. Obviously, if you feel you're not getting tested, that we understand this time, seeing a doctor, many of them are doing it virtually and so on. So a note from the parent if you're sick.
So I do want to put out there for everybody that it would be important for you to be in communication with the nurses in our health office, who are very, they are clearly following all of this very closely. They are actually putting some protocols together to be able to help track symptoms and things like that. But they are going to be, from a health related standpoint, they are going to be your best resource in terms of, if you have specific health related questions.
Okay. I don't see any more questions here. I got another one here. How will you ensure that masks worn by students are safe? Many of the comfortable masks are flimsy and single layered and do not provide much in actual way of protection. Will a student be asked to follow guidelines as far as multi-layer filters, etc.? The mask that we'll provide will be of good quality. As far as whether there'll be a special, like, like I'm going to hold up here, a KN95, they won't be of this quality, for comfort and sake. So the restrictions may not be as great. We're not going to have any ones that have valves because we know that those don't block the passage. We're not going to have people having bandanas. They will have to go over the nose and mouth. But to say we're going to check to see that there are certain of a certain quality, we're not going to have that. We're going to have that they meet the criteria of covering the nose and mouth, and are fixed appropriately along the sides also.
So we are purchasing 2 masks for every student, 2 cloth masks. And just to let you know, we did go through a variety of samples. 1, to make sure that they were going to be comfortable, but 2, to make sure that they were going to provide the appropriate coverage that would be needed. And so the idea with the 2 cloth ones is that you have 1 to wear and 1 to clean. You don't have to wear the one that the school is issuing, but as again, we did certainly take a look at the masks before we just went and ordered something online.
So next question, curious to know what physical education class will look like. Are those classes will be 90 minutes long? Physical education class will look much different, and I'm going to allow Dave to speak about that, but it will definitely be much different than what students are used to. Dave, can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, we're actually having meetings with each of the elementary schools, middle school, and high school over the next 2 days to get some more ideas. But locker rooms are going to be closed. They're definitely going to look different. The idea is that we're going to try to get outside as much as possible. We're going to keep social distancing practices in place. Activities might be a little different, without a doubt. And I think the teachers that we have, we're going to be able to come up with some really great activities for the kids to stay moving, stay active, but also do it in a social distancing way. So I've already begun to talk to teachers already, but more of that will come out towards the end of this month. I know for sure that we'll be able to share with you.
Thanks, Dave. Another question here. Families that are going in vacation to, say, Florida, a week before school starts, they should be quarantined for 14 days school start. I'm concerned that those students may bring the virus into our school. There's no way to ensure that, yes, they should quarantine, and hopefully they will. If we were aware that a family was in Florida, we would require them to quarantine and say that, you're not admitted to school, you'll have to start remotely. My hope is that if a family does go on vacation that last week, and they do go to one of the states that have been, earmarked as a health risk, that they notify us and they have the option to start remotely. And if they do after 14 days, there's no issue, they then can start school and be with their, live teaching and be in school. But there's no way for us to know who's on vacation and who's not, unfortunately. Sorry, I'm just looking to see. I believe that's the last question. So as Eileen said, I encourage you to, if you have any questions, to please email us or to pick up the phone and make a phone call. I have no problem calling you back, answer any of your questions that you may have. If I can't answer you, I'll put you in the right direction or have someone else who may have the knowledge. If it's a question regarding sports, I encourage you to contact Dave. He'll be able to give you the most in-depth answer, as he's most current on what's happening. If it's something at the building level, by all means, contact Eileen or the administrative team there. If it's a curriculum issue, Aaron would be the person to reach out to, and you can call me for anything, and I'll point you in the right direction if I don't know. I thank you for your time. This will not be the only question and answer session that we'll have. I would hope once we have a clear direction, whether we're opening, live, or we're in a hybrid model, or we're distance, we'll obviously have another. We will put out, we'll submit to the state on Friday, and we'll put out in the next week or two, which will actually be our plan, and potentially have another meeting after that. If you have any feedback about this format, we would have liked to had all of you on, whether it's Google Meets or Zoom. It's just we weren't sure of the number, and we knew in the format using the YouTube channel we can handle a large crowd. The only issue is asking the questions has to be either via the phone or email. So I don't know if anyone else has anything to add, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon, and please don't hesitate to contact us.